Hello, I'm Janet Hasselbring, the author of Country Dairy, A Week with Heine and Ellen. I'm going to read my book for you today on behalf of Read Muskegon, the Literacy Council of Muskegon County. And I would like to give credit to my illustrator, Bruce DeVries, who is from Fruitport, Michigan. I hope you enjoy my book. Now, Country Dairy is a little history book. It tells actually about my parents in the 1930s living and working on the land that is now Country Dairy. And you may have heard of Country Dairy. It is just north of New Era, Michigan. And it looks a lot different today than it looked back then when my parents were living and working on the land. Actually, my grandfather settled the land. Then my father worked on the land. My brother Wendell now owns Country Dairy, and his son-in-laws now have pretty much taken over the farm. So I guess you could say it's a fourth-generation farm. And this is the story of Country Dairy, looking back, moving forward, a week with Heine and Ellen. Those were my parents. This is the story of Heine and Ellen. Together they lived on the land. Heine tended the farm and Ellen the house, living in harmony, hand in hand. Come for a week to the house on the hill, overlooking the countryside. Watch as they toil from dawn to dusk, with God as their faithful guide. On Monday, Ellen washes the clothes and hangs them out to dry. While they flutter and flap and dry in the breeze, she bakes an apple pie. Heine leaves early to milk the cows. A frothy stream fills his pails. The cattle low softly, waiting their turns, gently swishing their tails. On Tuesday, Ellen pulls up onions. She picks and snips the beans. She plucks plump berries from the blackberry bushes, red ripe tomatoes and bunches of greens. With Maud and days harnessed, Heine leaves for the fields to work and till the soil. The birds chirp and sing as he guides the plow, lightening his day of toil. On Wednesday, Ellen works at her sewing machine. She mends and darns socks for Heine. She knits, she tats, and she crochets, then hand stitches some quilt squares so fine. Heine's up with the sun to harvest the hay. With a hay rake, it's rolled out to dry. Then up the hay loader it travels along, where it's piled on the wagon up high. On Thursday, Ellen bakes her bread, mixing and kneading the dough. She places the loaves into waiting tins, then into the oven they go. Heine works around the house. He weeds the flower bed. He sprays the roses and trims the shrubs. Then it's time for a slice of fresh bread. On Friday, Ellen cuts her flowers, fashioning fragrant bouquets. Roses, snapdragons, nasturtiums, and mums, nourished by the sun's warm rays. Heine loads the baskets in the truck and drives to the asparagus field. He snaps the tall green spindly stalks, then he's off to market with his yield. On Saturday, Ellen cleans the house, sweeping and mopping the floors. She dusts the ivory piano keys, cleans the windows, and polishes the doors. In the evening, Heine visits the chicken coop. Chop! Off goes a plump hen's head. He plucks its feathers and soaks it well before he and Ellen go to bed. On the Sabbath, Heine and Ellen go to church, dressed in their Sunday best, then home for chicken with all the trimmings and an afternoon of rest. Life was busy, then it got busier when Heine and Ellen started a family. Just as they tended the garden and field, they cared for each child lovingly. 7 children graced their home, 4 daughters and 3 sons. More clothes to wash, more socks to darn, more mouths to feed, cinnamon buns. Many years passed. Heine and Ellen were tired. It was time to pass on the torch. They sold the farm to Wendell, their son, and went out to sit on the porch. Birds are singing, crickets are chirping, with nature in perfect accord. A breeze is blowing, the sun is setting, perfect peace with each other and their Lord. Heine and Ellen have gone to heaven. They've watched their last sunset. But surely as the sun will rise each day, their lives we will never forget. The farm has changed since they lived here. Country Dairy is now its name. But the lessons learned from Heine and Ellen, hard work, diligence, and faith are the same. The end. Now, my brother always tells the story of how from the time he was a young boy growing up on the farm, he wanted to be a dairy farmer himself. So it was a dream for him come true when he took over the farm from my father and then turned it into this huge dairy complex. You can visit the farm and take tours of Country Dairy, and school children are welcome to visit the farm too. And in the summer, they have an ice cream social where they scoop free ice cream. So you might want to take advantage of that. Now, I grew up on the farm, but I have to say that when I wrote this book and talked to my brother, I learned some new things about farming and cows that I didn't know. If you go to the farm, you'll be able to go to school there. There's a school called Moo School, and part of the tour involves going to Moo School and learning some things about cows that maybe you didn't know before. Now, Country Dairy owns approximately 2,400 cows. They milk about 1,400 of them at a time. Can you imagine when my father owned the farm and my grandfather owned the farm? He started the farm with 6 cows, and now there are 2,400 cows. And of course, my grandfather and my father milked the cows by hand, as did Wendell when he was a boy. Now, of course, that's all automated, and you'll be able to watch them milking the cows if you go on a tour. Now, how much milk does the average cow at Country Dairy give in a day? 9 gallons of milk. So if you picture a gallon and think of 9 gallons of milk, that's a lot of milk. And the butter fat, that's the fat in the milk that rises to the top if it sits for a little while. The butter fat in that amount of milk would make 15 ice cream cones. Now that's the average cow, but the top cow at Country Dairy, during her best season, gives 23 to 24 gallons of milk a day. The amount of butter fat in that milk would be 37 ice cream cones worth. Now, of course, the richer the ice cream, the more the butter fat it has, and Country Dairy has incredibly good ice cream. That's because the butter fat is so high in their milk. Now, if you can picture 3 large-sized swimming pools. I'm not talking about the little kidney-shaped pools you see outside. I'm talking about these large pools in a high school, let's say. Country Dairy produces enough milk in a week to fill 3 of those large high school-sized swimming pools. Now, how many times a day does a cow get milked? Only 3 times. And each time, the milking lasts only 10 minutes. So if you do the math, you can see that a cow only works 30 minutes or a half an hour each day. My brother believes that well-rested, well-fed cows give the most milk, and the cows at Country Dairy can eat as much as they want. Now, did you ever hear of a cow chewing its cud? Well, that is because cows eat so much roughage. It takes 5 stomachs for them to digest all of that food. And when you see a cow chewing their cud, they're actually passing their food from one stomach to another to digest it all. This roughage consists of soybean meal, ground corn, alfalfa, and hay silage. And if you ate that, you would need 5 stomachs to digest it too. The average cow eats 100 pounds of food in a day. That's the equivalent of one of us going to McDonald's and eating 400 hamburgers. That's a lot of food. A cow lives to be about 12 or 13 years old. And can you think of all the products that come from milk? There's cheese, there's ice cream, there's butter and eggnog, cottage cheese, cream cheese, chocolate milk, whipping cream, buttermilk, and yogurt. And you can buy them all at the farm store at Country Dairy. So I invite you to take a trip to Country Dairy sometime and tour the farm and you'll see the cows, and you'll see the land that I was reading about in Country Dairy. It looks a lot different from the time when I lived there, and my parents, Henry and Ellen, worked on the land. But it's the same land, and it's still being farmed today. So, thank you for listening to my story, Country Dairy. For more information about Country Dairy, you can visit countrydairy.com.